What a victory.
Too bad we can't get a drum roll because I have the results for, we can turn this down a little bit. I have the results for the puzzle. So Joseph Kennel with 8 points came in the lead. He just edged out Marcos Romero with 7 points. So get with Kelly. She will give you a T-shirt. That's your prize. You can get a T-shirt. No prize for second place. Here there are only winners and losers. Missy with 4 points came in for the bronze. Too bad there's no bronze prize. Kelly for 2, Nolan for 2, Leanne for 1, and Marco Chitis for 1. I just found out that was actually Kelly's, so Kelly got 3. Hey, no talking from the cheap seats. Only I get to talk. So I have this little thing. Okay, very good. So that was the thing. For those that didn't know, if you don't know what's going on, then you need to get on Slack. We do all kinds of stuff like that on Slack. So if you're not on it, download the app, sign up to the Freeborn Church workspace, and you can get on these things, what we're doing. Anyways, the puzzle was what the sermon title was for today. The title is The Male Yearning. It rhymes with orange. Oh my goodness. Doesn't mean anything. But some people. Hey, hey, see this? Hold on a second. This thing keeps turning off on me. It's upside down. Give me a second. There we go. Had it upside down. Okay. The male yearning. Let's get right into this. Men have been engineered by God to have very deep, fundamental desires. This is how God made them. And this is in no way, what I'm saying today, a reflection on women. We can have another message. We can talk about the female yearning. I won't do a puzzle on that because it would be like, obvious, right? Like, I know what it is. Anyways, but that's not what we're going to talk about. But I don't want you to think that in some way I am dismissing women and how God made them. God made women also engineered perfectly as well in a different way. And in this church, we do believe that men and women are different. And so it's not that I am in any way trying to diminish how women are and how God made them. That is every bit as important, but we're only going to talk about one today. We're going to talk about how God designed men. God designed men in a very unique way. It's not like there's a lot of difficulty there because there's only two. There's only a man and a woman. There's no other thing. There's no other gender. That's it. There's men and there's women, and men are very different from women, right? Very different. And men are designed in a very unique way that's different than the way women are designed. Now, our culture today thinks that the way men were designed is toxic. They think that what is properly called masculinity is toxic, and that the proper response to it is to poison it out of them, right? It's to use like a form of psychological chemotherapy to kill that in them, and that's what our culture is trying to do. It's what they're trying to do to your sons. And while I'm not here advocating for any type of educational system, it seems to me, just in my review of how things are going, I don't know how much longer Christians are going to be able to send their children to public schools. There's really becoming increasingly difficult to see this going much further. Now, again, I'm not advocating for or against anything. I'm just observing that it is incredible how quickly our entire culture, all the way down to the elementary level of schools and even to the pre-elementary levels of schools, are against, are antagonistic to how God designed men. And they're antagonistic as how women are designed as well. I don't want to leave that out. It's not just an attack on men, although I do think that right now the attack is far more overt against men than it is against women. I think so, but maybe not. It may be equal. But anyways, their response to what they view as being toxic masculinity is to just poison it out of them. They're trying to do, like I say, a psychological chemotherapy on them and kill it out of them. The problem is that chemotherapy kills the patient also if you're not very careful. So, that's where we're at in this thing. And what they're doing is at times irreversible. The damage that they're doing to young men today in our day and age is really terrible. There's actually physical damage being done to them. If a young boy says that he thinks he's a girl, they're very happy to castrate him and change him physically. Physically, I don't mean metaphorically. I mean physically. And this is really, really bad. This is real bad. So this is because the one reason why is because our society today doesn't understand God. They don't understand how God made and designed things. And what they do, what the world does with everything it doesn't understand, is kill it. Right? If you don't understand it, kill it. If it threatens you, kill it. If it looks dangerous, kill it. That's their solution to everything. Let's just kill, discourage, destroy, disparage anything that we don't understand, anything we find frightening or puzzling. Let's get rid of it. And they don't understand how God made men. Our world today does not understand it. That is largely a byproduct of civilization. So I've said this before, but civilization can basically be understood as layers of abstraction. So you have reality, which is horrible. Reality is horrible, right? And then you have where you live, which is far, far, far away. You live in the kingdom far, far, far away of reality. And the layers that separate you from the reality of having to kill your dog to eat, the layers between that's what we call civilization. And it's wonderful to live on top of all those layers. It's really nice because reality is very dirty and very dangerous, and most people don't survive it. So when you get rid of these layers of abstraction, you find that people died very young. So you go back just a short time in history, and you find that the average lifespan was like 40. And what most people think is that means that people died when they were 40. And that's not what that means. Most people lived to be almost the same age as they do now. Most people did. Benjamin Franklin lived to be almost 80. Almost all the founding fathers of America lived to be almost 80. So it isn't that they lived to be 40 and then they dropped dead. It's they didn't survive childhood, right? So the infant mortality rate lowered the mean and the average down. And then the average was 40 years. If you could survive childhood and puberty, well, then you would probably live to be 60, 70, 80 years old. But you didn't survive that because the life was really, really tough. Very dangerous. That's reality. Well, we live in a time where we have all these layers of abstraction. So anything that seems dangerous, frightening, threatening, well, that doesn't fit with what we think of civilization anymore. So we want to get rid of that. Here's the thing. Men are threatening. That's how God made them. So that's how they respond to that. So when we look at men, there's some research that I read, and that's what I wanted to, what prompted me to want to speak on this. But I read some research about what it is that men yearn for. For those that don't have a dictionary and don't know what it means, yearn is to deeply long, deeply desire something. I was going to use another word that might be equally hard. Deeply desire something, right? And there's some things that men universally deeply desire, yearn for. I'm going to name. Well, I'll list them and then we'll talk about them. So, 1, be on a team. 2, to serve a king. 3, to perform a sacred quest. 4, to fight a dragon. and 5 to rescue the girl. That's what men want. Now, I've just given all you women that are puzzled about, I don't know what it is that men want. I've just told you what they want. This is what they want. It doesn't matter if they're 9 or 90. That's the one thing you got to understand about men. It doesn't change. They want the same thing from the moment they have any sense whatsoever in their head to the day they die. This is what they want. They want to be on a team. They want to serve a king. They want to perform a sacred quest. They want to fight a dragon, and they want to rescue the girl. That's what they want to do. Let's talk about those for a minute and think about what exactly those things mean. I realize they're phrased in a way that's a little bit comical. I did not phrase them this way. This is actually how they come in the research that I've read. But I realize they're phrased in a certain way, and that will be apparent in a minute why, but they're actually deeply meaningful, and if you want to understand your young boys, your sons, if you want to understand your husband, if you want to understand men, then you need to understand this. If you young men want to understand yourself and why you are disheartened, discouraged, depressed, why you feel lost, you need to understand yourself a little bit, and this is what almost all men want. First of all, they want to be on a team. This is an interesting thing about men. Men are very social creatures. We think of it as reversed, right? We think it's women who want to have lots of friends and boys are like loners. That's not true. God never looked at Eve and said, it's not good for a woman to be alone. God and Eve both thought the same thing. It's good for a woman to be alone. That's not what God looked at. God looked at Adam and said, it's not good for man to be alone. And it's not. And men don't want to be alone. They don't. Now, they're not interested in a pillow fight party and paint your toenails party. They're not interested in that at all, okay? They want to be on a team. It's more than just that, right, having little friends. They're not interested necessarily in friends. They want camaraderie, and there is a difference. There is a difference between having friends and being on a team, right? Being on a team is being around people that share your same values and your same objectives. You're all trying to accomplish something together. Now, that's fun. So men don't want to sit around and watch a chick flick, or what would be the male version of a chick flick. That's not necessarily that as enticing as men wanting to get together and go do something. It might be hunting, it might be fishing, it might be playing football, but they're going to go do something. And they're going to form teams. And they're going to compete with each other, because that's what a team does. A team competes, and men want competition. Men want competition. They want to see who's better than who and who's going to beat who, and they're going to keep score. Our society doesn't want that. They want to take away all that nonsense, and they want to give everyone an equal prize, and they want to just say that we're all one big team, which means there are no teams, and they wonder why men are not interested. Men were not designed to be alone. They were designed to be on a team, to be with people that share their values and have their back. That's what men are looking for. They want to be on a team. They also want to serve a king. It's true that men compete and they want to be, top dog, and that's like most men are competing and trying to like crawl up that ladder, if you will, but they all want to admire somebody. They do. They all do. Every single one of them. Even the ones who think they're the best, they're looking for somebody to hold in admiration. That's why leadership works all around the world, because men gravitate towards leadership. And so they're looking for role models. They're looking for someone who will inspire them, who will motivate them. They're looking for someone who will compete with them, who will make them strive to be better than they are. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for someone to follow. And it doesn't mean that they're followers in the sense that they don't have a mind for themselves, that they don't challenge that authority, but they are looking for an authority to challenge. They're looking for an authority to follow, to admire, to look up to, and to overcome, to do better than. So men are looking to serve a king. Now, if their king is tyrannical, selfish, or brutish, well, then they'll be that way also. But if they can find a king who is kind and good and helpful, right, and positive, then that will be the example they'll follow. And this is why boys have such a connection to their fathers, and why their fathers play such an enormous role in their life. And as we take away the fathers out of society and replace them with feminized government, then we're going to have a lot of problems with the men in society, because they don't have a father to look up to and to admire and to mentor them. And men are looking for that, and they will find that. And if they can't find it in their home with their father, then they'll find it on the street with a drug dealer, or they'll find it. So they're going to find it somewhere. All right. So they're looking to serve a king. Third thing is they want to perform a sacred quest. Men want there to be purpose in their life. And going to work and making money isn't purpose. It's mundane, right? It's routine. It's not a sacred quest, that's for sure. Now, women look at that and they go, well, I want a man who's responsible and dependable. He's going to get up every day and go to work. That's like a death sentence to men, that idea. Men don't do well with that. Now, I am not excusing irresponsibility. Don't get me wrong. All of you are getting kind of excited. You're thinking, woo, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go on a sacred quest. That's not, don't misunderstand. But I do want you to understand, especially you ladies need to understand, that what men are looking for in life isn't the drudgery of a daily job. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking to perform a sacred quest. They want to do something that is special. They want to do something that is valuable and transcendental. Right? That's what they want. Now, obviously, if you're going to grow up, you're going to have to get a job, and you're going to have to go through the drudgery of working every day. And then, so what are you going to do as a man? Well, you need to find a way to balance the drudgery of everyday life with the desire to perform this sacred quest. Right? That's what you're trying to do. And that's why so many men are so lost in the world, is they don't have a way to do both things. They can't figure out a way to live in a world that is a constantly more routine than ever. More routine than ever. They say that Henry Ford had as much of an impact on this as anybody in history, because he took what was a craftsman's job of building a car. So before Henry Ford, when they built cars, if you were a car builder, you would take your parts and your tools over there in that corner, and you would build a car. And that was your car. You built that car. Well, Henry Ford took and turned it into an assembly line. And now your job is to take one bolt and put it in that hole. One bolt and put it in that hole. One bolt and put it in that hole. And you do that all day for 10 hours every day. That's not what men are looking for. Not at all. Okay, fourth thing. What is it men want? Well, we've said they want to be on a team. They want to serve a king. They want to perform a sacred quest. They want to fight a dragon. Now, this kind of goes along with that sacred quest, but the thing is, a sacred quest has to have some real danger involved in it. If you want to understand what if you're not sure what I mean, and you're not having a hard time wrapping your head around what I'm talking about, go on YouTube, type in the search bar, why do women live longer than men? Type that in. Why? There's like 100,000 videos showing you why women live longer than men. Men do the craziest things, right? Just go on there. I won't even describe more. There are videos of real-life human beings who all happen to be male. You never find a woman doing these things. This is what you find men doing, and overwhelmingly find them doing. I know that our society likes to point out the one or two atypical women who are involved in some type of high-level danger like that, and there are some out there. I'm not trying to overgeneralize, but those are extreme exceptions to the vast majority of the thrill seekers, the danger buffs, right? The evil Knievels in the world. They're almost all men, because men want to fight a dragon. They need an enemy to fight. For men, pure pleasure is pure agony. Right? They're not looking for comfort. All comfort, not good. They want to test their mettle. They want to push their limits. I raised 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. And and the boys and the girls are completely different. No one taught them to be that way. I did everything in my power to make my daughter tough. Tough. I wanted her to be tough. And no matter how hard you try, boys and girls are naturally different. And my boys were naturally thrill seekers and love danger, love things, love to do things that were going to... I never had to worry that my daughter was going to come home and, like, you know, she's figuring out ways to put forks into the receptacles and figuring out ways to drown their brother in the toilet and things like that. Never had to worry about that. Had to worry about that all the time with the boys, right? Because they're looking to just say, how far can we push things before stuff starts to break? Right? Including our arms and our legs and our noses. I mean, how far can we go before we want to get right to the edge of death and then take one more step? And so parents, when they have boys, it's a constant thing of watching them because you know they're just looking for ways to kill themselves. Because they're not having fun unless there is severe danger involved. That's why all games with boys escalate until it's like a bomb went off, right? All the time. All games escalate. So you start with boys and they start, like, you know, playing tag. Like, oh, you're it. It's not going to stay like that way very long. Pretty soon it's like, you're it. And then pretty soon it's like, you're it. Yeah, because they need a dragon to fight. Men are inherently dangerous creatures. Not just love danger, they are dangerous, inherently dangerous. Men have reserves of rage coupled with tremendous strength and a body chemistry that can turn off inhibitions and pain. So you think about what that means. So highly intelligent, full of rage, right? And tremendous strength, and then once their body chemistry is going and they're in the middle of something, then they don't have any inhibition for it. They have no sense of danger and very little sense of pain. And that's where you get hockey and football from. And fighting an unworthy adversary only makes them surly and miserable. See, you want to know why bullies are miserable? Is because they spend their time fighting what people they know or beating up people they know that aren't good adversaries. This is why men are looking for someone who's a little better than them. They don't want to beat somebody who's smaller than them. They don't want to overcome somebody who's weaker than them or less than them. They want to overcome the next one up, right? That's what they're looking for. It's always looking for the next rung up, going seeing how high I can climb. You never see a boy doing a game with the point of the game is, how safe can I be? There is no boys' game like that. The boys' game is always, how high can I go? How far can I jump? How shallow of water can I dive into? Because they're looking to fight a dragon. So they need a real challenge, because without a real challenge, it makes them surly and miserable. And by a real challenge, it means that there has to be a real potential of not surviving. I mean, a real potential of not surviving. So if they could make skydiving where nobody ever died from it, well, that wouldn't be interesting anymore. It's only interesting because some people actually do die from it. So it's like, but it won't be me because I'm better than them. That's how boys respond. Yeah, but, if you drive that fast and that way with your headlights turned off, 14 people died last year from that. But it won't be me because I drive better than them. That's how boys respond. That's how they are. But it's only interesting because some people actually do die from it. So boys want to fight a dragon. Problem is, there aren't any real dragons in our society anymore. Our society is trying to get rid of all those things, and we're trying to nerf the entire world so nobody can get hurt. And too many parents are doing that with their children. You ought to be very careful. I realize that there's a balance to strike between, right, you don't give... let me give you an example, and I know my parents watch this, so I'll give the example for their sake. So when I was like 5 years old, my dad was cutting down like 20 acres of hardwood forest to turn it into farmland, and I wanted to help him. So he took me out there, and he got a hatchet out of the barn, and he sharpened it up, sharp as he could make it, and he gave it to me to go chop trees with him. And I was 5. I still have the scar on my knuckle from when I tried to use it. Well, it was so sharp, it slid down the tree and hit me in the knuckle, bled everywhere. And then my dad tells me, the only reason you're crying is because you saw the blood. Like, no, because I cut open my hand and I'm 5. When I was 6, he gave me the chainsaw, because then I was old enough for the chainsaw. I know there's a balance to strike between wanting to nerf the world so your kids don't get hurt. And that's what mothers tend to want to do, tend to want to protect and isolate. And this is why, as you have fewer and fewer fathers in the home, you have more and more disappointment, disillusionment with life from boys who never have a chance to ever fight any dragons at all. And they have to have that opportunity, because sooner or later they're going to look for it. Men are looking for a dragon fight. 5th thing is they want to rescue the girl. That is what men want to do. Now, women nowadays have taken that to be very bad. They find that to be demeaning. That men have the poor little woman can't do anything for herself syndrome. And that's just completely wrong. Women are not looking at this properly at all. Not looking at it properly at all. Everything men do from the time they hit puberty to when they die is for a girl. If you know, you're like, I wonder why he acts that way. There's only one reason men, from the time they hit puberty to the time they die, do anything. Everything they do is for a girl. Everything they do. And so you don't even have to really think about it very hard. That's just how they do, and you can just understand men. A man without a woman is like a ship at sea that has no ports in it. They just aimless. Men never grow up until they get married. I've known men who are 50 years old and not married, and they're like little boys. But men just can't grow up without a woman because they have no port at sea. They have no purpose in their life. They're aimless because men do what they do. They do it for a woman. They do it for a girl. I'm going to say girl because that really makes the feminists angry. So I'm going to say that, girl. So feminism will portray this desire, this deep yearning built in by God. They'll portray that as being demeaning to women. That it's this little woman mentality. But that's silly. That's completely silly. Men want to protect them, they want to provide for them, and they want to impress them, not because they see them as inferior. See, this is what they're thinking. They're thinking, oh, it's because men think women are inferior and they have to be protected like if they were hurt animals. You've never seen what men do with hurt animals, have you? Apparently, you've never seen that. See, we had a cat that started showing up at our house, right? Cat starts showing up at the house, and Terry's like, oh, we should call the Humane Society. I'm like, I have a 22. We don't need to call nobody but the Undertaker. Like, pow, pow, problem solved. That's how men deal with hurt animals. That's not what men are doing with girls. No. You say, well, what analogy is there then for how men treat girls, how men treat women? Well, what men do for women looks a lot more like what men do for goddesses than what they do for hurt animals or inferiors. You think about how a man wants to impress and win the admiration of a god, and that's how men treat women. Men want to rescue women not because they think they're helpless. It's because they hold them in such high regard. Feminists are stealing from women the best thing they have going for them. Men want to hold the door open. It isn't because they think you're incapable. So, let me let you in on a little secret, men. As we're talking about this, I will let you men in on a secret. Women want dragon slayers, not puppy petters. Okay? If you think, I know, you say, but I've heard them talk, and they say we want someone sensitive. They're lying. They're all lying, right? They're trying to throw the others off the scent. They're not looking. No, women are not looking for some gentle, caring, sensitive, doe-eyed with a little puppy in his arm. Do you love me? They're not. They're looking for a man who wants to slay a dragon. And if they're not, then, now day and age, who knows if they're even a woman. So, okay. So this is what men are looking for. And it's basically universal across cultures, across time. I know we like to think, oh no, we're very enlightened and this has all changed. No, it hasn't. It wouldn't have to be, they wouldn't have to be trying to toxically remove it if that were true. All right? So this is how basically men are. Just take my word for that. So, having said that, you have all these men and this is what they want in life, right? Today, right now. And how are men today, how are boys today dealing with this inherent yearning? What are they doing about it? They're playing video games. Because when they play video games, they get to be part of a team. They get to follow a king, right? They get to have a sacred quest. They get to fight a dragon. And they get to rescue the girl. This is what the video games give. Now, I'm not here talking against video games. I'm not telling you that they're bad or wrong at all. To me, they can be just any other form of entertainment that's perfectly fine and healthy and good and no problem with them. But I will tell you this. Boys that are trying to find purpose in life in a video game, they're going to be very disillusioned. Now, the world isn't offering them any better alternative. This is a problem. The world is not offering much of a better alternative. In fact, they're stripping all of these things away because they contribute to their alleged toxic masculinity. So no more recess, going outside and forming teams and throwing balls at each other's heads, trying to knock each other senseless. No more of that. Now we're all just going to sit in the cafeteria and talk. Well, that's wonderful for girls. It's terrible for boys. And if you look at what school has become, what has happened with learning in our modern culture, that learning has been great. School has been tremendous for women. Women are excelling at incredible rates, more than ever before at school. And boys are doing worse than ever before at school. Because our society has decided to make school amenable to girls and not for boys. Now, I'm not advocating that that's wrong. I think it's wonderful that girls are doing great in school. I think we ought to find a way that school can be good for girls and for boys, and they can both excel. But what we've decided to do is let's just make it really good for girls. And part of that, not all of it, part of that is taking away these things that boys are looking for in every aspect. Boys aren't just looking for this at the end of their life. They're looking for it in every moment of every day. Every game turns into one of these games. Every single game is going to turn into a sacred quest, slay a dragon, follow a king, join a team, right? Every single one of these. Every moment, everything they can do, they try to turn everything into that. I would give my boys, my sons, a task to perform, and they would always turn it into that. It's like, I don't want you to do that. I just want you to sand the board. I don't want you to slay the board. I don't want you to fling the board. I don't want you to hit your brother with the board. I just want you to sand the board. Sand the board. But everything turns into this, because this is what boys are looking for in life. Problem is that if you try to find it in virtual reality, if you're trying to find it in the video game world, well, then you're going to find it without any real risk. You're going to find that it's not nearly as meaningful to join a team that does not exist. It's not merely as meaningful to follow a king who you do not know. It's not nearly as meaningful to slay a dragon that's made out of pixels or a girl that can't kiss you back. It's not meaningful. So, but why would they want them there? Why would boys, let's set aside the fact that, the partial fact that society is stripping them away, stripping everything away from them. Let's put that aside for a moment. Why would boys choose to seek those things in things like video games? Well, because there's also no real risk in any of those. All of these things that boys really want are very dangerous. Very dangerous. You have to deal with exclusion. So you want to be part of a team, but they might exclude you, and that's a very real danger. Disappointment, failure, death, rejection, those are all real. And that's probably the order that boys fear them the most in. They actually fear rejection from a woman worse than death. They'd rather die than be rejected by a girl. Look, everyone's looking around at certain boys. This is all boys. This is how God made men. It just is. I'm just pulling back the curtain. You're getting to look in and see. Problem is, even though there's no real risk in all of this, there's no real reward either. Right? There's no real reward. Now, I want you to understand, young men, there's nothing wrong with this yearning you have, this desire to join a team, follow a king, perform a sacred quest, slay a dragon, rescue the girl. None of those things are bad. They're good. They're all good. You shouldn't feel you need to suppress any of this. And you parents should not think that somehow you need to tame them or suppress them. You need to direct some of this energy in a good direction. But you parents need to realize that your kids are going to do things that are going to terrify you. Now, I'm not saying that you at 5 years old, you sharpen up the hatchet for them. That's not what I'm suggesting. But maybe give them a little bit of a dull hatchet, right? You guys are saying, we're not giving them any hatchet. I got a hatchet, and it worked out okay for me. No. You don't need to suppress it, but here's what you do need to do, okay? Here's what you do need to do. You need to get on a real team. And you need to be led by a real king, going on a real sacred quest, fighting a real dragon, and rescue a real girl. Now that's what you really need to do. I mean, get in it for real. You want to, you have this yearning, don't play games. Let's do it for real. Let's do it for real. Okay, so for quite a while, the Christian church has driven men out of the church and out into the world for a long time now. This has been going on for, 100 years, maybe more. The Evangelical Church is 24% male. 24% male. It's overwhelmingly women in the Evangelical Church, and all other religions are basically the same, or at least all Christian denominations are essentially the same. Overwhelmingly women, because the church has become something that is not interesting to men. Their doctrinal emphasis is not interesting to men. The church is emphasizing heaven. That is not interesting. You're going to be in heaven forever. You're going to be a fat little Cupid with a harp floating around on a cloud, singing kumbaya. It's going to be so lovely. That might be appealing to women. It is not appealing to men. Men are not interested in that. You know that men will literally say they'd rather go to hell than go to that. If I could imagine a hell, it would actually look a lot more like that. That actually sounds very hellish to me. No. They're emphasizing the heaven. They should be emphasizing the kingdom. Now that's appealing. That's interesting. A king, an army, a fight, a struggle, a conquering. And when you read the scriptures, old and new, It doesn't talk about Christ on clouds unless it's coming on clouds with fire streaming out from underneath him, with a tattoo running down his leg, with a sword in his hand. Now that's interesting. The church has feminized the gospel and appealed to women, but not appealed to men. And men have have run from the church. They emphasize rest, comfort. Come to our church. It's very comfortable. Men are actually interested in comfort. The church should be emphasizing work. Men are not interested in sitting doing nothing. They want to say, come to church, sit here, and listen to me talk for 2 hours. That's not interesting. I don't care what you're saying. That's not interesting. Saying, hey, come here and take a part and be involved and have something to do, and we'll give you responsibility, and it's going to be tough, and you may not be as good as the guy next to you, and you may fail, and we may have to say, hey, you're not doing too well. Now that became interesting. What do you mean I can't do it as good as the guy next? I can too do it as good as him. I can do it better. They also cater to female sensibilities, the type of music that most churches nowadays have. It's female. It's not male. It's not something that's really interesting to most men. They make emotional appeals in sermons. They try to get you to cry, pull on your heartstrings. That's just gobbledygook nonsense, at least for most men. Got seeker-sensitive production values. They got little props, and the preacher's up there, and he's interacting with some prop and all this. This is just not interesting. You wonder why men are fleeing in droves from the church, and we've got like 24% men participation rate in church? Well, there you go. Now, if that approach worked, don't you think the Navy SEALs would be doing all of that to get recruits? Come here. We have props, and we're going to sing touching music, and the drill sergeant is going to make you just weep like a baby. No, it probably wouldn't work, right? It's not what men are interested in. They say, you know, we're not going to have a heaven week. That's not what the Navy SEALs advertise. We're going to have a hell week. And they're like, yeah, hell week. That's what I want. All right. Okay, so here's the good news. Here's the good news. The good news is the world, this is crazy, the world is purposefully driving men out of it. So for 100 years, the church has driven all its men into the world. And now the world, for some unknown reason, has decided to drive them all out of there. So it's all this toxic masculinity, and you need to find your feminine side. Boys don't have a feminine side. Stop looking. It doesn't exist. Right? All this, and it's all toxic and bad, and basically we're gonna feminize you. So here's our chance. Here's our opportunity. The church has been given a huge second chance to reach men. To reach men. Because the world doesn't want them. And where are they going to go? Well, that's the question. So today, men today have two options. The world doesn't want them, so they can either resort to crime, and go look at our prison statistics if you want to know how serious this is. You can resort to crime to be a tough guy. It's where your toxic masculinity is appreciated. Or church. Those are their options. Now, not any church, because there's a lot of churches that still think they need to be driving men away from themselves. But they can turn to crime, or they can turn to church. So then we have to ask ourselves as a church, how are we promoting masculinity? I want to read you a text of Scripture where John deals with this a little bit. In 1 John, he says, I write unto you, little children, because your sins are forgiven you for his name's sake. I write unto you, fathers, because you have known him that is from the beginning. I write unto you, young men, because you have overcome the wicked one. I write unto you, little children, because you have known the Father. I have written unto you, fathers, because you have known him that is from the beginning. I have written unto you, young men, because you are strong, and the word of God abides in you, and you have overcome the wicked one. This is what he says to young men. You're strong, the word of God abides in you, and you've overcome the dragon. That should be the church's view of masculinity. Little children, you know the Father. Fathers, you know Christ. Young men, you're strong. You have the Word of God, and you're fighting against Satan. That should be the church's approach to men. We should make no apology whatsoever for believing that men and women are different, and that difference is of God. It's good. It doesn't make women less than they are. It doesn't make men less than they are. Women are also extremely valuable. They're just as valuable as men. We need both in the church. I'm not advocating a church of all men. I think for every man, there should be a woman. For every man in the church, there should be a woman. For every woman in the church, there should be a man. But we're not going to have men in the church if when the men of the world see that the world doesn't want them as they are, and they look at the church and the church still doesn't want them as they are. This church, and every church that actually believes in Christ, needs to be a church that offers men what they actually are looking for. Not because we're seeker sensitive, but because we're God sensitive. What men are looking for is what God has put in their heart to look for. It's not some contrivance, some cultural contrivance that men are looking for these things, that yearn for them deeply. It's how God designed them. So where are you going to find, excuse me, where are you going to find, you young men, these things? Where are you going to find a sacred quest? Where are you going to find a team to join? Where are you going to find a king to follow? Where are you going to find a dragon to slay? Where are you going to find a girl to rescue? There's only one place you can find all of those things. There's only one place, and that's in the church. And that's why you need to understand that the church presents a view, a perspective of spirituality that says that the world that we live in, that seems mundane and routine and a drudgery, is a magical world full of real danger. And you get to go to war in it. And you do. You get to go to battle in it. Now, if you don't accept or believe or see that spiritual realm, well, then you're one of the clones, you're one of the drones that are walking around on the lower level, interfacing with a drudgery of reality. You're one of the little drones walking around every day living the same life, wondering why you're depressed and why you feel like you're not living up to your potential. Because you're not. Because you're not. You were designed to be on a spiritual team, to follow a great king, to perform an important task in life, to do battle with Satan himself. And you were designed to rescue a girl. That's what you were designed to do. Church is the only thing that is offering all of these, and it's more clear than ever before, because the world is ripping them all away from them. But Christ is still giving you the same opportunity. You know what he told his disciples? He chose these apostles, and he told them, some of you are going to die. You're going to be persecuted, beaten, tortured. Some of you aren't going to make it. You wouldn't think that's the way to gather up an army. But that's exactly how you gather an army. That's exactly how you gather an army. Christ is still telling you the same thing. There's a real war, and you can be a part of it. And you were designed to be a part of it. Let's close with prayer. Dear Father, I thank you very much for your word. I thank you for how you have designed both men and women. I ask that you would open our minds and our eyes to see the depth and the brilliance of that design and to embrace that. I pray for all the young men and all the men in this congregation that are hearing me. I ask that you would open their eyes to the potential that they have to serve you, to fight real battle, to have real victories, to face off real defeats. Father, I ask that you would give each of them a woman to love and to care for and to protect and to give their life for. Father, I ask that you would inspire each of them to join the army assembled in array following you. I ask that all of these truths would be as apparent to them as they are to me and to many others. And I ask these things in the name of Jesus, and have a great day. See you next week.